welcome to Kindergarten Curriculum Night. Welcome to the kindergarten team, Mrs. Reyes, Mrs. Bass.
Whole lot of us this year.
That's it. We have our daily schedule with the highlights of the daily schedule.
Yes.
And that would be school, the kids arrive between 7:20 and 7:30. We pick them up from the gym. Class begins at 7:40. So they get down here, unpack, and do that routine. The other big thing is recess, which was an oops, it's actually 10 o'clock. Followed by lunch at 10:30, we get out at 11. Our specials time is 11:35 to 12:25. So we have a little bit of gap between lunch and specials, and then of course, the next big thing is, when do we go home? It's 3 o'clock. If you are in the Walker side, we are at the furthest point in the building to the other side with 40-ish kids with little legs, who always have to go to the bathroom at 2 minutes
As they're
to
packed
3.
up, yes.
So we can't leave a man behind, so we have to sometimes wait. So,
We're usually the last to arrive to the
Yes.
Walker's area.
so it does take us a while. If you're in Carloop and you're like, where's my child, please understand. Some days
We
are
also
better than
have
others.
pre-K on this hallway,
Yes.
and sometimes they don't quite exit the hallway in time for us to start going either. So we make it as quick as we can.
Yes, we do.
We've made it out a few times this week before the bell rang, which was
Okay.
a big
That
success.
was pretty impressive. Here's the other important things that we go to.
Yes, so specials is usually another highlight of the day for your kids. Each week we go to art, PE, music, and this year we've added STEAM, which they're already loving. And then Fridays we alternate through all of the specials. So really quickly, if your child is in K1A, they always have PE on Mondays. So that would be half of Ms. Reyes' class. K1B is Tuesdays for PE. And then K2A is PE on Wednesdays, K2B is PE on Thursdays, and then we usually have PE again every other Friday. Sometimes it changes though, so we just ask that every Friday you try to send your child in sneakers, so that they're ready for PE if they have it or not. And then weekly we do also see our guidance counselor and our librarian. My class goes to the library every Tuesday. We're not bringing home library books yet, but we've started checking them out, so we're keeping them in the classroom for a few weeks just to practice building that responsibility, and then we'll eventually start checking out a second book that will get to come home. So we'll just ask that those for my class get returned on Tuesdays, and then Mrs. Reyes' class goes on Wednesdays, so they will ask that theirs are returned Wednesdays. So once those start coming home.
And we only let one of the two books go home, so if
Yes.
they lose, it's only
One loss, one's still at school.
Yeah. We do have our specialist teachers and support staff. There's quite a few. So here is the link in the presentation we sent home. You can read all about our art, music, PE, our speech teachers, a couple other teachers in there. MLI,
I
There's
think
quite a
probably in ESL.
ESL, that's right, that's also in there.
And then sneak preview, it's our guidance counselor, who is Mrs. Morgan, which like we said, we get to see her every week this year, which is wonderful. Every other week your child will go to guidance in her classroom, and then the following week she comes to us and we'll push in and either do a targeted lesson that we've talked about with something that may be going on in our class, or just focusing on a skill or problem solving. A lot of what we work on with kindergarten is regulating our emotions and problem solving, building friendships and social skills, and she's great with helping with that, talking us through our feelings and learning to just regulate those emotions ourselves and find ways to stay calm when things happen that we may not like. She's also always available to you guys if you have a concern about your child, so you can more than welcomely, I don't think that makes sense, email her, reach out to her with any questions or concerns you may have.
Readiness is a big part of kindergarten. Keeping track of their personal belongings. Again, like the library book, like their folder, their backpack, their water bottle, apparently shoelaces. have also been
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
So trying to keep up with that.
Especially jackets when those
Mm.
start being necessary.
It's hard to believe we're saying jackets, but
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
But again, when they tell us, oh, my mom forgot, And no. It's your item, it's your backpack, it's your school. You forgot to put it in there. So we understand reminders, but trying to get those kids to actually do some of this work at home, so they're taking a little bit more accountability for their belongings. We also, of course, are supporting those social interactions, using words, again, Ms. Morgan comes into that, using words instead of hands or anything like that to express ourselves. Participating in class and in specials. We try to get the kids to encourage them to participate. Just because your hand's raised, doesn't mean I can't call on the person whose hand is not raised. Because a lot of times, well, I didn't raise my hand. I know.
So I'm calling on you.
They think they know. I'm not sure about you. I know. So feedback that way. We also encourage that if they get it wrong, it's okay. We constantly tell them it's okay to be wrong. We learn when we're wrong. We'll figure out the right answer together. A lot of times the kids, especially in our math, what we're doing, they have to justify their answer. Why did you think that? How did you see it? So they get to start explaining, and sometimes they realize, oh, I was wrong, and then they can fix their answer.
Mm-hmm.
So giving them the opportunity to realize they were wrong and then fix the problem themselves. We have parent communication through Just the Facts with Ms. Hall. We send out a newsletter. We will email. You are welcome to email us anytime. Our conference period is not until 11:30. Sometimes we have meetings, so we try and get to you during our conference period, so it may be 24 hours, maybe a little bit longer, because sometimes we don't get to you till after school. Again, independence with technology. Getting kids to take ownership. The iPad is theirs, keeping it on the table, not having it on the floor. Making sure that we are using the correct app when the teacher is saying, let's all tap on this app. Making sure that they have difficulty or if something pops up on the iPad, they don't try and fix that themselves.
That's a big one.
Yeah, raise your hand if something's popped up. Don't hit yes or no yet, but let us see what it is first. So again, trying to have them know, understand, and then ask for that help, especially when they don't know what the problem is.
Yes. And then some continued readiness. Thankfully in kindergarten we have bathrooms in the classroom, but we also still need to work on the independence with that. A lot of times because the bathroom is in our classroom, it's more comfortable. So making sure your kid knows that that doesn't mean they should come out without pants on or anything like that if they've had an accident, that there's still an entire class in here. So we want to maintain that privacy and making sure that they know how to handle all bathroom situations independently, because we can't help with any wiping or anything like that. And then also if it comes to either an accident or a spill that requires us to change clothes, being able to change their clothes independently as well. Also self-care as far as eating goes, making sure they know if they're hungry. If they're hungry early one day and they need to ask to have a snack early, we're never going to tell them no. Unless it's just because they have a cupcake and they really want to eat it. But knowing to advocate for their needs, and then also making sure they know how to feed themselves, how to use the utensils that are required for their lunch. Hands are not spoons. And then being able to open their lunches and containers themselves, and at least knowing that they can try before they ask for help. And then also with using any supplies that we may need throughout the day, just really working on opening and closing things with your kids at home, which I know all kinds of things open in different ways, so sometimes it takes a while. And then being aware of their environment, making sure they know how to stay with the adult that they're supposed to be with, follow a line, follow their class. Obviously, when they are with you, they are not following a line or a class, but making sure that they know how to stay with you or the adult that is responsible for them. We will not be going on field trips until later this year, like after Christmas break, so that will help with us kind of getting all of that in line before we take them into public. So we usually get all of that figured out. And then listening and following directions. Obviously, in a perfect world, they all listen and follow directions the first time that we ask. However, we do give grace, because kindergarten, that's always not always the case. But we do expect first or second time that they're following directions. By the third time, they're probably getting a warning for not following directions. And ideally, we all learn that that is the expectation. And then responding to conversation or their name being called instead of just continuing what they're doing, making sure they know that they need to make eye contact with the person that's speaking to them and answering that person's question if they may have one. So that's just other good stuff you can practice at home with them too.
Technology, as we talked about, we are a one-to-one campus. We have just about all our iPads, which is amazing this early in the year. We do use apps on the iPad. They're intentional learning apps. It's not Minecraft or anything like that. They have like some art apps and things like that they do use in other classes, and STEAM will also be using apps in the STEAM room. They'll be using their iPads a lot more. The STEAM room, I know.
Haven't said that one yet.
STEAM classroom, I don't know. But the kids have been, getting used to that. We have been using Dreambox. They have been learning how to log in and use that and use it with intention. We could actually assign lessons in there. The kids are knowing that I have to go to this lesson first before I do any other lesson. So again, just getting them into that routine and the expectation of how to use technology. Again, independence, learning how to get their iPad out, to put it in, their headphones, putting their headphones up. If you have not sent in headphones, please send in headphones. We do use them for quite a few things. When there's a lot of kids using, say, Dreambox, chimes and dings and yays and hoorays and, try agains, it gets kind of noisy. And it definitely takes other kids off task.
Yes.
Digital citizenship we have gone through, so they know no liquids, no foods, don't leave it on the floor, how to care for the iPad. Hopefully to prevent damage, but we're talking about 5-year-olds. We do keep them here at school. We do keep them in the cabinet when they're not in use. Try to keep them as safe as possible. However, things do get broken. You may want to look into the device protection. Kindergarten, probably the biggest damage is headphone jacks breaking off in the little jack. We have tools, as best they're tools and paper clips and things like that we try and get them out as best as possible. Sometimes we're successful, but when they break very tiny in there, we have to submit that, and I don't know, but I think that might be a damage with the iPads. So you may want to look into the iPad protection.
And then goal setting is a big thing that we focus on in kindergarten, in all areas of kindergarten. We do a lot with reading, writing, and math, social emotional goals, and we always encourage your child to have say in their own goals. So they'll get to actually set their own goal for themselves. They can think about what they would like to improve with, so that it is self-driven and they get to focus on what they think that they would like to get better at. And then that also helps with us in tracking their progress throughout the year. It's a really good way for us to celebrate even the smallest of victories with your child, whether it's learning how to write their name with the correct capitalization or writing a complete sentence using spaces. Throughout the year, obviously, their goals will get increasingly more challenging, naturally, just with the progress that they're making. And then it's really cool for us and for them to be able to go back and look at what their earlier goals may have been, even just going back with writing from the beginning of a unit to the end of a unit and being able to see all the progress that they've made within just a few weeks of writing. So if you hear your child talking about a goal, that may be what they are talking about, and you can ask them what their goal is or what it is that they are working on.
We do have readers and writers workshop, and they are, Lucy Calkins is the program that we're using. It's research-based. In our readers workshop, we have a daily routine. We usually teach a mini lesson. Then the kids will have choice in their time to read. They have a book box. We put books in there. They also have other books that they've chosen. Sometimes we have what we call lookbooks versus reading books. And we let the kids make sure that they have a passion about what they're reading. If they want to read about dinosaurs, read. They get that lookbook and they look at those pictures and they look at the T-Rex and everything. That's great. They're having a passion and a desire to read. But we also put books in there that we can sit down and read with them and actually have them do the sounding out and the process that goes with their reading and learning to read. We do a lot of working with high frequency words, making sure they do know words, but also working with sounds and how words sound so they can sound out more words versus just pulling from a bank of words they've memorized. How can they figure out words? We do use data so that we can be a little bit more responsive in our teaching, making sure your child is working from where they're at and moving them forward. If your child's a reader, great, we're gonna move them forward from that point. If your child is learning letter sounds, we're gonna move them from that point. Not everybody is gonna be working where that class averages.
And then with writing, we also follow the workshop model. Our daily routines, we start with us teaching a lesson and then watching us do something. We do it together and then they get to try it independently. During their independent writing, where they get to write every day unless we have something that comes up and we don't get to write, which they're usually very sad about. They are getting to choose the topic of what they're writing about. We'll focus on 3 different genres throughout the year. So we'll start with narrative writing, and then we go into informational writing, where they do how-to writing, which is shockingly usually their favorite throughout the year. So that's also when we see a lot of huge growth, because they all get very passionate about what they're teaching through their how-to writing. And then we go into opinion or persuasive writing, and then end of the year we kind of cycle back through all the genres so that they get to really see how much growth they've made. Some of the big ideas and things that we focus on is spelling phonetically. It may not be spelled perfectly, and that is absolutely okay, because that is age appropriate for kindergarten, but we want them to spell how it sounds. Spacing is a huge one too. Capitalization, punctuation, those are all things that will come kind of later in the year, or when your child is ready for it. We do conference with your child, so we'll get to target what they actually need in addition to what the whole class is working on within their writing. So if your child is already ready for capitalization, that's something that we're gonna have a conversation with them about to get them started working on that, so that they're able to make progress even if they may be already ahead of what it is that we're focusing on in class. And then we also have grammar that we are using every week, and we tie that into our writing a lot. We'll focus on nouns, adjectives, and verbs, which is kind of crazy to think about in kindergarten, but it helps them really understand what writing in a complete sentence means, and we're able to tie all of that in together, which is nice and just helps it all kind of make sense for them that reading, writing, grammar, phonics, everything goes together.
And then of course we have phonics.
Yes.
Again, this is your child, even if they are a reader, they still need explicit instruction in phonics. How to sound out words, how to manipulate the sounds of the word. How to understand that the sound, the written word, has this sound when you speak it. So going through all that, making sure there's explicit instruction on that, using rhyme. We've been doing a lot of rhyme. We actually use a program called Heggerty, which has the rhyming and the phonemic awareness, and also breaking things into phonemes, which we have also been doing with learning each other's names in the classroom. So, and then we get to our phonemic awareness.
And our phonemic awareness, which we call it by both names so that we can try to learn both, but Heggerty, if you hear them talk about Heggerty, it's very interactive and responsive, so a lot of it is us saying something, them repeating it, and there's usually hand motions that go with it, or with a lot of the different sections. One of our favorites right now is they get to repeat a sentence with a lot of enthusiasm, and they get to count how many words, so that's really fun for us right now. Another one that they love is we give them a compound word and they have to segment it into the 2 words. So if they come home doing like weird hand motions and asking you to repeat words, that's where that's coming from. But building those routines really helps them with being able to kind of process those skills and use them in their reading and writing. And the skills are spiraling, so we'll start by mastering things now, and then we'll come back to it, and the skills will increasingly get harder throughout the year. While still using those same routines. So.
And handwriting, we do teach it. Right now the big focus is that pencil grip. We see a lot of thumb wrapping or just kind of fisting a pencil. Really working on that pinching. We've talked about Ally the alligator, so if your child's at home and holding a pencil that's not in a regular pinch or tripod kind of position, remind them about Ally the alligator, and all of a sudden you'll see them maybe pinch and then flip the pencil to sit in their hand. Sometimes trying a shorter pencil, so we've tried different thicker pencils, shorter pencils, thinner pencils, trying that with different kids. Of course, also using a pencil grip if they still cannot get their hand to remember that. A lot of muscle memory. Working also, we have lines on paper. If you should see your children writing, and there's lines on paper and they're not even close to it right now, it's okay. They're trying to figure out, they see the line, they're trying to write on the line, they're writing above the line, they're writing close to the line. They're getting used to seeing that there is a line, and that will develop over time when they actually start putting letters on the line. Fine motor skills, of course we get that through handwriting, but things you can practice at home, making sure they're holding their pencil, their crayon, using scissors, having them pick up, I don't know, spill Cheerios or spill something, or they got crumbs someplace, having them pick up the crumbs. Getting that pinching motion to develop the strength in their hands and their fingers. Zippers are also great for that, having them zip up their own jacket
And helpful.
when it gets cold one day.
And then next is math. In math we do follow a workshop model as well. We start with a number talk every day, and that really is us kind of getting your child's brain thinking about how they understand things, being able to explain reasoning behind why things are the way that they are, and letting them understand that just memorizing facts is not what we need to. We need to understand and be able to process and explain our thinking. Some of the big concepts that we work on in kindergarten is number recognition and counting, which that cycles through all year. We'll increasingly use bigger numbers and be counting to larger numbers. Right now we're working on counting by ones, but we'll also count by 5s and 10s to 100. We also count forwards and backwards. So countdowns are great to practice with your child at home.
Preferably starting from 20.
Yes, but it can also help with getting things done, so it's nice. And then we also do geometry. We've already focused on 2D shapes, which a lot of your children did wonderful with. Coins and coin recognition is something that we work on the spring, which tends to be one of our more challenging focuses throughout the year because coins are not nearly as prevalent as they used to be. So if you have coins laying around, that's something that you can always go ahead and get that foundation started and work on with them. We do work on graphing in kindergarten, which they actually really enjoy. We'll get into where they're creating their own graphs, and that's always fun to see what we decide we want to graph. And then using problem solving and critical thinking, addition, subtraction. We'll go back to geometry for 3D shapes. And a lot of what we do does provide a lot of room for us to give extensions to the kids who need them. So if we're focusing on something that your child has already mastered, they're not going to just be sitting there doing something boring that they already understand. It's going to be more open-ended for them where they can focus on harder skills or being able to extend to bigger numbers if that's something that they're ready for. And then we do incorporate reading and writing into math with word problems, lots of responses.
Good evening, Lakeside family. This is just a reminder that we are wrapping on up our evening event. Thank you so much for learning about our curriculum here at Lakeside. We hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will see your students bright and early tomorrow morning. Have a great night.
For science, we try and do a lot of hands-on for the kids. We have been learning about, right now it was like our 5 senses. What do we use our senses for? Things like that. We are also talking about properties. So looking at something that's big and small, or the color, or heavy and light, how do we decide that? So yes, they've gone around the room, picked up chairs, pencils, whatever they could to see what was heavy, what was light. Of course, a lot of kids thought the tables were light.
Big muscles.
Okay. Yeah, hold that for a second. There you go. But we do talk about physical science, plants, animals, matter. We talk about sound, of course, the 5 senses. Rocks are a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
We also do heating and cooling, and sometimes watching a candle burn is amazing.
Or going into the deep freezer in the
Oh, yeah.
cafeteria.
That's a field trip.
Big day.
Don't need any chaperones for the field trip for the deep freeze, but we do like to go there. Social studies.
And then social studies, a lot of what we cover in social studies in kindergarten is about the world around us, learning about our community, whether it be a small community or large communities that we're a part of. Some of the big concepts that we focus on right now, a lot of it is problem solving skills and learning how to handle situations in the world around us or the classroom around us. And building community. We also will learn about communities and our community workers and helpers. We're learning about authority figures right now and how those look different at home, school, and in our community. Traditions and cultures. We'll also study all different holidays. We love when there is a holiday that maybe not everyone celebrates that we get to all learn about together, and kind of what those traditions and cultures are that go with that. And then also with historical figures, holidays, like presidents, birthdays, things like that, U.S. symbols. We also incorporate a lot of reading and writing into social studies. A lot of our read alouds that we'll use throughout the year will be focused on what we're learning in social studies, to tie it into the things that we're learning. We also do lots of responses with social studies to be able to really process and reflect on what it is that we've learned with social studies.
And in also social studies, we do get a magazine.
We do.
For the kids to use. So they're also using not only books, but they're also getting
Yes.
something else type of structure to read, which is a magazine. And a lot of that is used during our social studies time. And assessments. We do a lot of assessments. Your kids may have come home and said, we just took a math test today. We were doing our beginning of the year assessments. We did some on the iPad. We did a reading and a math assessment. We have met with the kids one-on-one, looked at letters and sounds and things like that, just to try and get their beginning of the year baseline, and also to see where we need to move your child further. Again, we don't want to teach something they already know, pulling our small groups to differentiate, and then move them where they need to be. We will be doing a lot more writing assessments as the year starts to progress, and they are writing a little bit more. We also look at their reading levels, again, a little bit longer so they have some time to get to that point. We also do a lot of informal, just sitting here on the carpet and seeing who can do what real quick. Report cards are one thing that we do every 9 weeks, so you will get reports that way. We do conferences in October. If you should need or want a conference to know how your child is doing at any point, email us, and we will be more than happy to set up a time so we can sit down and talk to you.
And then GT, if you have any questions or concerns about the GT screening process, Mrs. Warren has provided a lovely QR code for us that you can use to contact her. She also has some little printouts for
To-goes.
you over here that you're welcome to take. Kindergarten is a universal screener year, so every child will be considered for GT this year. And we do that through a variety of different ways that we are assessing your child and screening them. So any questions that you may already have, you're free to reach out to Mrs. Warren. Otherwise, we usually wrap up the screening process in January.
The big things, when we eat. Breakfast, if your child does need breakfast at school, we ask they get here at 7:20, so that gives them about 20 minutes to eat breakfast. 5 minutes is not enough for a kindergartner to eat anything. We have lunch. There is no extras for purchase at lunch. No ice cream, no cookies. If they have a birthday, they get a birthday treat. That is the one time they will get something. Right now, we're holding out because we want them to eat their food and not ice cream. So, snacks we do, please no nuts, and we try and keep it handheld without utensils in the classroom. Oh, this
Oh, yes.
background.
Whether you think you're gonna volunteer this year or not, we ask that you go ahead and fill out the background check, which is this first QR code. It happens every year that something comes up and everybody wants to come for it, and there are a few people who haven't filled out the background check. And usually if it is very close to the time, or there are a lot of people that are trying to fill out the background check at one time, it can get backed up to where it takes a while. So if you've already done it, it's just nice for you to not have to worry about it. And that is something you have to do each year. So if you haven't done it yet this year, that QR code right there will take you to it. We will also be asking for lunch volunteers for kindergarten and first grade this year because we have lunch together. So this QR code here will take you to where you can sign up to volunteer for that if that's something that you're interested in. And that will also come with our newsletter.
Birthdays, if your child has a birthday and you'd like us to pass out invitations, we ask that you send one for every child in the classroom. If you'd like to invite a child from another classroom, please do that separately. If you only want to invite 2 or 3 kids to the birthday party, we ask that you do that outside of school. We will not hand out invitations to just 1 or 2 children. We have 2 parties during the year, PTO moms, Ashley Fuel, Leanne Fuller, and also Catherine Merrill. They will be reaching out to you and asking you to help with a variety of activities.
Party planners.
That's true. We do have field trips, but we are scheduling those in February, like Ms. Bass said, so the kids learn how to do school and stay together before we take them out in a public setting.
Release them. Which we are planning on going to Crayola this year, which we've done the past few years, and then the Dallas World Aquarium. We will need chaperones for those, so
Fill out your
background check.
If you have an absence or your child is sick, please send a handwritten note in. I know there is a form, I believe it's been in Just the Facts or on our website. You can use that. Please try and have your child here on time. If you need to leave early, try and let us know. Send us an email. If we don't respond to your email, please call the office so that they can contact us to make sure that we know. Transportation, same thing. If we don't respond to you, please contact the office. They will call us and make sure that we have seen your email. Our conference time is only at 11:30. We may not get to the email if you send it at 2. Again, background check. I don't know if you know, that's kind of important, the background check.
And then sicknesses, we've already had quite a bit going on this year. Shared some germs already. If your child has symptoms, we ask that you keep them home. With fevers or any vomiting or diarrhea or any fun things like that, we ask that your child is free of any of those symptoms for 24 hours before they come back to school, and that is without medication. So not fever-free if they've taken ibuprofen, fever-free just by themselves. Medicines, even things like cough drops or inhalers. I know a lot of times later in the year we have some of those come in. Those do have to be checked into our nurse. Our nurse this year is Katie Simmons. She's wonderful, so she's happy to help with getting all of those checked in so that if something comes up and she needs to administer something like that to your child, she has it on hand and we don't have to worry about calling you to get it when we need it. And then if your child does have symptoms at school, we usually try not to send them to the nurse right away unless we can tell if something is severely wrong with your child. We try to help them go to the bathroom, take a drink of water, have a snack, rest for a minute, and a lot of times that helps and they're better. But if they are not, and we call for you to come pick up your child, you'll have 30 minutes to pick them up, and then again the 24 hours of being symptom and fever free before coming back to school without medication.
Any questions about that? Katie Simmons,
Yes.
our nurse, she can help you with that. And that is kindergarten in a nutshell.
Yes.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask them, or you can email us if you think about it later. You have been sent the